I'll make one reference to a project that Bob and I worked on after the attacks on 9/11, and it's the closest that I've ever worked with Bob. And one of the things, I learned two things during that. One is that Bob has ultimate patience. If you go into an interview with Bob, it doesn't matter how many handlers are there saying, last question, last question. Bob will continue to ask more and more questions. He won't get up. He has an iron rear end. And the second is he always asks for documents. Do you have memos? Do you have journals? Do you have files? That's the technique. I want to close on a couple of questions about Watergate characters. One, start with you, Bob, the obvious question about Mark Felt as Deep Throat. How essential was he in the reporting that you did? In other words, in the way, the question of would Nixon have survived without the tapes being revealed? What would have happened if there was no Mark Felt or Deep Throat? And was he as maddeningly cryptic in real life as he was on the screen?
Yes, definitely. I mean, Carl and I went to see him after, and he was elderly, and he was in a red sport jacket, remember? And but you know, one of the things Carl and I learned about this partnership, and we only framed it this way recently, each of us did 60% of the work. It's like a good marriage. You have to both give 60%. And Felt was, some people say he was the key, some people say he was irrelevant. He was another source. But what was important, as I had mentioned, if you read Katherine Graham's memoirs or Ben Bradlee's, they knew, they did not ask for that identity. They knew we had a secret source in the government, in a sensitive position in the executive branch, and that gave them great comfort. And I think it's quite possible some of these stories wouldn't have got in the paper or wouldn't have got in the paper as soon as they did. So it was 60-60, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And the instance of Deep Throat, I think, tell me if you agree, that more often than not, his importance was not in giving us original information, but confirming things, maybe taking them a little bit farther, that we had already learned from other sources. But we knew where he worked and what information he had access to. So if he said, that's right, it gave the story a kind of solidity.
But it wasn't specifics. It was,
that's right.
That it was the overall
context.
Well, but it's kind of everyone's involved. Everyone's involved. Your lives are in danger. You know, you can't. So you know, it happened the way it happened, and sometimes I look back on it. I think Carl looks back on it as, I wish we'd been smarter and realized, and that where it was going, because we didn't know where it was going. Carl did early on. I mean, you had an instinct for this is going the whole way. I didn't. I was more reluctant to reach that conclusion. But that conclusion was, whether right or wrong, it's a great structure for doing the reporting. In other words, we're not here to, when I went on vacation during the summer of '72, Mr. Elbows here called me and said, what the hell are you doing on vacation? There's a story to work on here. It's true. It's true.